The concept, which we're going to read in a few weeks, of Yaakov, when he blesses his children, Yisachar and Zvulun, where Zvulun is fully responsible for the material support of the tribe of Yisachar. Because Yisachar, his capacity, his potential was to bring a level of Torah, of clarity to Torah, a level of elucidation which was unparalleled by any of the tribes. Because if a person has any level of distraction or even worry, this immediately diminishes the clarity which one has, because one has to be fully focused, even on a subconscious level, worrying about certain needs, which are basic amenities. It detracts from the clarity. There's an interesting concept which the Gemara talks about, and it's a psychological concept. The Gemara uses a term, you cannot compare a person who has bread in the basket with a person who does not have bread in the basket. What does this mean? A person has a pantry filled with food, and he chooses not to eat. For as long as he chooses not to eat, psychologically, this person feels secure, because since the food is available, whenever he chooses to take that food, he's not distracted worrying, and the hunger, even when he's truly hungry, the hunger gnaws at him differently than if he is worried. He doesn't know where that next morsel is coming from. If a person has the means, the availability of that food, he's secure, emotionally, mentally. It's up to him to choose when he chooses to eat. He could delay, he could push it off. But if a person, even if he's sated now, but he doesn't know where the next meal is coming from, the next morsel is coming from, even in the sated state, he's already worrying about what's tomorrow going to bring. Will he have the means? Will he not have the means? Where is this applied within a halacha context? A man has a wife. So because a man has a wife, every human being has certain inclinations and tendencies and desires which have to be satisfied. And a man has to be satisfied with a woman, and a woman has to be satisfied with her husband, with a man. So the man is out of town, so to say. His wife is not available to him. Not available to him. There's at a certain subconscious level, he knows that need cannot be fulfilled. And therefore, there's certain laws which are precautionary, which offenses a person has to take, which if he be in the community where his wife is, he does not be concerned. Because the person could be assured that he has that guarantee, or he has that availability, that need it could be satisfied whenever he chooses to satisfy it. Therefore, that extra precaution does not have to be taken. That's the concept. Because it's called pas b'sal. Therefore, the Gemara tells us that there were Amoraim, the rabbis of the Talmud, they would marry multiple wives in different communities, because there were times they'd be away from home for months, and another community, so they would marry a woman in that community, not that they wouldn't necessarily engage with her, sexually speaking, but the availability automatically allowed them to feel safe and not distracted, because that is always available to them for that reason. Yisachar never had to worry where the next morsel was coming from, whether he would have the security of a roof over his head, his attire, will it be attended to, will it be laundered? Every aspect of his physical need was addressed by Zvulun. That was the dedication Zvulun had to Yisachar. Now, Yaakov understood the characteristics, the potential, the qualities of his children. Each one had a different potential, different strengths. And based on those strengths, which emanated from the makeup of the neshama, their soul, Judah was royalty. leadership. Each tribe had another ability and creativity and expertise. Zvulun, to be able to care and attend to the needs of Yisachar, you had to revere and esteem and understand the value of Torah to such a degree that when you support and are focused on Yisachar's needs, you don't see it. It's a compromise in your own needs. If a person goes and offers a person a multi-billion-dollar deal for relatively speaking pennies, does he feel that he's giving up anything? It's a total gain. That's not giving. Although you may give a significant amount of money, but understanding the guaranteed return on whatever that investment is, you're getting, you're not giving. That investment is a guaranteed return in multiples. The level of understanding and the capacity of Zvulun was to such a degree, he appreciated the value of Torah, which is undeterred, undistracted, that level of clarity, provide that to the Jewish people, that was the ultimate. And because they understood it was the ultimate, therefore they would go to the high seas, risk their lives to earn the amount of money that was needed to support Yisachar. So that was only but only Yaakov could make that assessment because he understood the inner infrastructure of Zvulun's neshama, that he had that capacity. Therefore, he chose him to be the one. Now, why did God create a wife for Adam? So if you read the text, just a simple text, the narrative, Hashem says, I will create Eza Kenegdo, a helpmate opposite him, to provide for him. What's the helpmate? So the Midrash tells us, what was the objective of God creating the human being? As the Navi says, I've created the human being, the material world, l'chvodi barosiv, for my glory, meaning that if man recognizes and appreciates who God is, he merits the ultimate. So if he glorifies God, that's an indication he's dedicated, he will merit that special relation with God. But so the Midrash says, if Adam would have to shear the sheep and wash the wool and spin the wool, weave it into cloth, and make the garment, Torah Mateoleh, when is there be time to study Torah? When is there be time to serve God? He's be preoccupied with attending to all the physical amenities which are needed by a human being. Therefore, I will create the wife. We're talking about a full partnership. The wife is no less deserving of the husband's accomplishments, because the husband cannot do what he could do, what he's meant to do, without her assistance. So if she functions as a full partner, attending to her responsibilities, to allow the husband, Adam, to succeed and achieve and advance in his capacity, the wife no less advances as the husband advances. Because without the wife, you cannot have that growth because of the distraction. So the concept of Yisachar Zvulun was originally established by God. The wife is the Zvulun. The husband is the Yisachar. Because even though the wife is still responsible, and the husband today, or always, was the breadwinner, so to say, but the husband still had an obligation to study Torah. Regardless, as the Rambam says, that whether you're poor or rich, or a person who has a large family, infirm, every male Jew has an obligation to study Torah. So if you have an obligation to study Torah, you still need some degree of assistance, even within that context, for the wife to attend to her responsibilities, which allows the husband, in that little bit of time that he has, that he can study Torah. So there's different levels of application of Yisachar Zvulun. That's the understanding. Once mentioned the story, there was a person who lived in the 1800s. He was one of the leading Torah sages of the generation. His name was Rav Meshulam Igro. And he was one of a kind of a genius. What it took other people months to figure out, within moments he was able to figure out. That was his level, his capacity of genius. I'll give you an example. Rabbi Shulei Diskin, he had a capacity we can't even relate to. If you would ask him, he would look at a wall of brick, made of bricks, and you would ask him, how many bricks are in the wall? Just with one glance, he could tell you how many bricks are in the wall. That was his breadth and scope of being able to evaluate and assess something. That was the real Diskin. Rabbi Shuli Igro was similar, even greater, that even within a moment, he was presented a question, he was able, based on his knowledge and his retention of Torah, he was able to immediately come to a solution, a conclusion, and a level of clarity. So, and he lived in abject poverty, and he had a family, and his wife was dedicated to the Torah of a husband, the true partner. And literally, they barely could put food on table for the children. And he was fully committed to his Torah studies. So his wife said to him one day, you know, I admire everything you do. I revere everything you do. I don't question what you do. But you realize I have such difficulty making ends meet, to put the bare minimum on the table to raise our family. At least I should feel that you're in it with me. There should be some empathy. Worry a little bit with me. You should feel for me. So he said jokingly to her, and he says, you realize, and it wasn't the question of a pompousness. He says, I have one of a kind of a mind. And I could do things in moments where it takes other people months and years. He says, when it takes you months to worry, I could worry in a split second. So I do have to emphasize with you. But he didn't have to say more than that. She understood exactly when he said that any level of distraction for him was considered a major distraction. Therefore, if that is the case, she doesn't want he should be distracted. Doesn't want. Because of that lack of distraction, because of her dedication, that we attribute that's his greatness. There's a famous, beautiful story. Rabbi Akiva was the greatest of the Tanakh period. He was the greatest of the 10 martyrs who were killed by the Romans. And Rabbi Akiva originally was an ignorant shepherd. And his employer was the